So, hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining the Energy Access Relief Fund Help Desk workshop on ESMS legal frameworks and IFC performance standards. My name is Dennis Migono. I am a communications associate at CLASP, and I will be your host for this session. We look forward to an informative and an engaging session. And before we begin, please allow me to go over a few house rules for your convenience. One, this session is being recorded, and that recording will be available on our YouTube channel after this session. Two, all attendees are currently muted to ensure a smooth flow of the presentations. However, we will be having breakout sessions and question and answer segments later in the program. And during that time, you'll be free to unmute yourself and discuss with the other attendees. Three, we also have the opportunity, we'll give you an opportunity to present any questions or any feedback that you may have to the presenters and to the facilitators. So in case you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature or post a question for us in the chat and we'll be able to respond to it. Four, we encourage openness and information sharing. We encourage you to use real life examples of what is happening within your company as opposed to generalizing, so that the response that you get is also targeted to the challenge that you're facing. Five, we also request that you respect the diversity of opinions and experiences that you will see throughout this workshop. Six, we will have breakout sessions later in the program. We will have 3 breakout rooms and discussions in those breakout rooms will be centered around risk identification. So what I'll request you to do is to indicate the breakout room which you would like to be assigned to. We'll have breakout room 1, which will be for mini grids. Breakout room 2 will be for retailers, and breakout room 3 will be for assemblers. So if you've not made a choice by the time that we're going into the breakout session, then I will randomly make that, I will assign you to a particular breakout room. And then lastly, we will issue certificates of attendance to all the participants in this workshop. And I will reach out after this to get your details and share that certificate with you. And finally, our presenter for today is John Amboya. He is an environmental and social safeguards. But before we hear from John, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Rebecca Rhodes, who is also a facilitator and a senior project manager at Gogla. Also with us today is my colleague, Monica Omboy. Monica is a senior associate at CLASP, and she leads the implementation of the Energy Access Relief Fund Help Desk. So before John presents, I welcome Monica to give opening remarks. Monica, if you're able to hear me, welcome.
Thank you, Dennis, and hello, everyone. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Monica Womboy, and I want to again welcome you and thank you also for joining today's workshop, which is going to focus on ESMS legal frameworks and the IFC performance standards. So this is the 4th workshop that we are having under the help desk. We have had 3 others, and in case you would like to watch those recordings or even access the presentations, you can find them in on the help desk portal, for which the link is just going to be posted now in the chat. And so, yeah, we welcome you to engage with that portal and see some of the resources that are available to you as companies, and reach out to us in case you have any questions. So the help desk was created with funding from the World Bank to provide technical assistance to applicants of the Energy Access Relief Fund, which is being managed by CIMA. And in this case, CLASP is the administrator of the help desk. And so the help desk is providing technical assistance on several topics around ESMS, including e-waste management, development, implementation, improvement of ESMS, stakeholder engagement, labor and working conditions, sustainable supply chains, and the Google Consumer Protection Code. So this webinar is one of the capacity building strategies that the help desk will utilize, but we would also like to invite you to reach out to us on our dedicated email address in case you would like more support on a specific topic. So for today's webinar, as mentioned, and as you can see on the slide there, is going to focus on ESMS legal frameworks and IFC performance standards. And John is going to take us on a deep dive on key ESMS elements. So talking about policy, talking about how do we go about identifying risk and the impact, what does management, what are management programs, and more so closing it out with a focus on organizational capacity and competency, and what role does that play in the success of any ESMS agenda for a company. And so I welcome you to engage. I welcome you to ask as many questions as you may have. And even when we have the breakout rooms, I invite you to share your experiences. And and also to we hope that this workshop is going to be worthwhile use of your 1.5 hours, and that it will be useful in building the capacity of your organization with regards to ESMS. And thank you and welcome, John.
Thank you, Monica, for the introduction. And good afternoon, everybody. So as Monica and Dennis have indicated that today we are going to cover aspects about environmental and social management systems. So mostly we are going to learn mostly why environmental and social management systems are important for the company to enable it and manage environmental and social risks in its operations. So first we'll start with a poll. And in this poll, we just want to get a placing, a profile of the participants in this training or capacity building session. So you want to know whether you are involved in mini grids installation, whether you are a retailer or distributor of grid solar products, or whether you are an assembler of solar systems.
All right, so we've launched the poll and the responses are coming in. So we'll just give the attendees 1 minute to be able to respond. All right, so if you've not taken the poll yet, we have 18 people who have so far responded, and we have about 26 people on the call. So kindly, if you've not given your response, please do. Okay, so far we have 30% saying they're mini grid installers. We have 35% saying that they're retailers or distributors of grid solar systems. And then another 52% also saying that they are medium-sized retailers or distributors of grid solar systems. 10% saying that they are assemblers of solar systems, that is small size, and then a medium size assembler of solar systems, another 19%. So John, are you able to see the results? I'll just go ahead and end the poll at this point.
Okay, I'm not able to see the results, but I think you've taken through. I can see the results. Okay. So from that poll, you can see that we have participants in the different areas of energy. So, and also we're operating at different scales. And from looking at the CIMA ESMS, there are different requirements for the different companies on the environmental and social management system. And if you've reviewed the ESMS, you can see that the requirements are tiered to the level operations of each each group. So in this training, we're just going to show you the easiest ways that you can create an environmental and social management system, and also to meet the requirements for that are required to access the Energy Access Relief Fund. Okay. So this afternoon we are going to first discuss the International Finance Corporation for Performance Standards and why ESMS is important. And then we'll try to define what is an environmental and social management system. And then why do you need an environmental social management system? What are the different components or elements of such a system? And then how can you go about developing an environmental and social management system for your business? And then lastly, we look at how can you implement an environmental and social management system. So I'll jump quickly into the performance standards. We have 8 environmental and social performance standards by IFC. So, and the first standard, which is on assessment and management of environmental and social risks and impacts. The second one is about promoting good labor and working conditions. And the third one is about promoting resource efficiency and also encouraging businesses to take or make efforts to prevent pollution and manage the same. The fourth performance standard is about ensuring that the operations of a business are not presenting negative impacts on the community in terms of health and safety. The fifth one, which is very common for people who are operating mini grids, is about guidance. How can you go about acquiring land for your projects, and whether it is involving any involuntary resettlement of people? What can you do? What can you not do? So it provides that guidance. So the sixth standard is about biodiversity and sustainable management of living resources. So this applies when you are planning to do a project in maybe in a conservation area, a protected area. So what studies are you supposed to undertake? What stakeholders are you supposed to engage? So you get that guidance on that performance standard 6. The seventh standard is about ensuring that the business operations or projects are not having negative impact on indigenous peoples in the different areas that you operate. And then the last one is about protection of cultural heritage, whether it's tangible, something that can be touched, or intangible, like something like songs, maybe poems and the sort. So one thing that I like to emphasize is that the color coding just means that the ones for green means that the business is required to undertake some form of environmental assessment. And then the ones for red involve mostly the society and people. So you're supposed to do a lot of stakeholder engagement for you to comply with them. So fast forward to the first standard. The first standard is on assessment and management of environmental and social risks and impacts. And this is the umbrella performance standards. It includes all the other standards when you start implementing it. And this is where you find that there's that requirement for a business to have an environmental and social management system. So, and in this standard, it gives a brief definition of an ESMS as a structured approach to managing environmental and social risks and impacts. So this standards encourages business to have that structured approach of managing environmental and social risks throughout a project or throughout their operations. So So what is an ESMS? I know most of you who have benefited or have borrowed from the Energy Access Relief Fund. I've explored these topics because there's that requirement that you're supposed to have an environmental and social management system according to your scale. So simply to put is that an environmental and social management system is a set of processes and practices that are implemented consistently by a business and are geared towards meeting set business objectives. So the important ones there are a set of processes and practices. And then there's that emphasis on consistency in implementation. And then they also help your business to meet your objectives. So an environmental and social management system must be aligned to the business operations. So such that it helps your business to incorporate environmental and social objectives in everything that you do in your projects, in your activities. And you must have like a set of clearly defined and replicable processes. So we can only say a business has an environmental and social management system when we have appropriate policies and procedures in place. And also we have people who consistently follow them. So my emphasis will be on that aspect about people who consistently follow them, because these people have also to be trained in those policies and procedures. So the other thing that is related to environmental and social management system is the assessment and controlling of risks. And that assessment and controlling of risk has always to be geared towards creating lasting improvement for the business. So you have to put in place a mechanism where you plan actions, you do the actions, you check whether the actions were done in the right way, and then if they are not done in the right way, then we go back to planning again and doing, checking, and so on. So are there any plans that the business benefits? You know, the business is able to foresee and address issues that are confronting it. So when you foresee and address these issues, you're able to take actions to prevent those risks from becoming actual problems. And then we have direct business benefits. So like in terms of operations, you are able to conserve and use energy and materials more efficiently. This may reduce your production costs. You're also able to reduce the waste that you generate and discharge. And also you get that when you recycle, you minimize costs of waste disposal. The other thing about direct business costs, you build processes to benchmark your expenditures against industry standards. You'll be able to do a comparative analysis of your expenditures against your peers in the same industry. And then you likewise, you identify potential production and operational cost savings. So in terms of managing human resources in your business, the environmental and social management system will be able to improve the communication between the workers and the managers, and then to anticipate also and avoid labor problems. The last benefit here that I've enlisted is about occupational health and safety management procedures. If they're in place, you're able to identify hazards in the workplace so that you can eliminate them. When you eliminate those hazards, you're able to reduce potential negative impacts. For example, you can reduce absenteeism if a worker is injured at work. If you're able to prevent that, then they're able to continue working. And then also reduce turnover of workers. And then if you have insurance for the workers, also you pay reduced premiums. So an ESMS system has 9 elements. We have the policy, we have the identification of risks and impacts, we have the management programs, we have the organizational capacity and competency, and then we have also the element about having an emergency preparedness and response. We have the stakeholder engagement aspect, and then the need to undertake continuous external communication and having a grievance mechanism. And then the 8th element is ongoing reporting to affected communities. If you're working in communities that you're required to report. And then the last one is undertaking monitoring and review. So most of in this training, we are going to just cover the first 4. And then the other 9 aspects will be covered in the other workshop that have been planned. So we'll start with the ESMS. ESMS has 2 parts. There's the part where you develop the system, and the second part is where you implement the system. So when we talk about system development, we are saying that you have documented policies and procedures in place. And when, on the other hand, we say you're implementing your system, we mean that you have trained and committed people who are routinely following the procedures and the policies that have been developed. So, and procedures are a step-by-step way for people to follow the policies that are in place. You have to have procedures for people to know what to do about the different policies that you've created. So the biggest emphasis in implementing an environmental and social management system is having people who are trained, people who are committed, and people who are following the procedures that are in place. So, and studies show that large companies are very good at developing policies and procedures and weak at implementing them. And small companies are better at implementing the procedures that have been developed, but they always face challenges in terms of creating the different policies and procedures. An ESMS must have a policy or many policies, depends on how you want to cascade your approach. So you can have a policy for environmental management, you can have a policy for human resource management, you can have a policy for environmental health and safety, you can have a policy for hazardous waste management, you can have a policy for driving a truck. Why are policies important? Because they're the cornerstone of an environmental and social management system. It's from those policies that you're able to create the procedures that to be followed with those trained and committed people. So a policy also summarizes the company commitment to managing environmental and social risks and impacts. And also policies establish expectations in terms of the conduct in all related aspects of your business. So mostly here people are talking about it's our policy to do this. So those are expectations. If you get somebody breaking maybe the human resource policy, you're told that you've gone against the human resource policy. So somebody is given an expectation in relation to that policy. So sometimes policies are rules. What is allowed, what is not allowed. And for example, in issues about labor and working conditions, resource efficiency and pollution prevention. So you'll find that in the Energy Access Relief Fund, there's a requirement that you have to have, when you're sourcing maybe the solar home systems, there are companies that have to have signed on some code. So that is a policy that you are required to follow. So that becomes a rule. And then also policies also provide guidance on community health and safety, and also how to ensure security. And mostly policies are done in terms of a statement. So, and when you are doing that statement, it should be very clear and simple, and it should communicate. It should communicate whatever that you decided on to everybody in the company, and also the stakeholders that are key for your operations. So the management, the staff, board, suppliers, contractors, customers, and all other stakeholders should be aware of your policy. So you have to create awareness about it. And then the policy should also be tailored to your company operations. And then be aware of the specific risks you face in your industry. The other aspect that I've not included there is that the policy should also be a first step in ensuring that you comply with the different legal frameworks in your jurisdiction or in your country. So for a policy, for you to start, for it to be effective, you have to create awareness about it after developing it. You have to train people in the business and also other stakeholders that are outside so that you get that commitment. And then also now you start implementing it. It is not wise for a company to start implementing a policy and you've not created awareness about it, you've not gotten the commitment of the different stakeholders internally in the company and also externally. So they have to understand it first before you start implementing it. So in the next step, we are going to go through a process where you can and methods that you can use to identify risks and impacts for your business. And there are different things that you can do as a business to identify risks, environmental and social risks. So there's an aspect about environmental and social screening. There's an aspect about undertaking scoping. And there are different tools that can guide you or you can use to do in this process. So the first thing that mostly this applies to projects which are bigger, mostly like, let's say an example of a mini grid. So when you undertake screening, you're considering the likely impacts and sensitivity of the locations that you're proposing to implement your project. And then when you do screening, it helps you to eliminate high-risk projects, alternatives. So if you're engaging the regulators, they'll be able to advise you whether you have to undertake an environmental and social impact assessment and at what level. And then when we do screening also, you're able to identify key sub-projects or activity risks and impacts. So for companies, you are required to do a pre-environmental and social impact assessment of the potential impacts from the proposed project and its alternatives. So when it comes to scoping, it's now, you've done the screening, you've eliminated the high-risk project alternatives, you've identified the risks, the key risks and impacts. Now the next step for you is to do scoping. You determine now among the key risks and impacts that you've identified in the first step, you start now making a priority. So if maybe you're taking land from a forest now, you say, which are the impacts that I'm going to focus on? Maybe it's loss of vegetation, or maybe loss of forest cover, or maybe there's displacement of people. So when you do scoping, you now start to prioritize the impacts that you'll undertake further study. So the other thing that you can use to identify environmental and social risks is undertaking a baseline study. Mostly this applies to the environmental aspects. So maybe you want to establish the status, maybe you undertake air quality assessment of the area before you implement the project. And this will inform the impact assessment and mitigation. So, and also it will inform the type of data that you're supposed to collect for long-term monitoring and measuring performance. And then now also for more detailed assessment that goes beyond screening and scoping. So when you undertake a baseline assessment, you get maybe, if it's air quality, you get the measurement that are currently there. So maybe if you are manufacturing maybe solar home systems, and then maybe after the first year of your operations, you do an environmental audit. You also undertake an air quality measurement to determine as your operations may be impacted negatively or positively on the air quality of whatever area that you're operating in. So, and some emphasis on when you're undertaking environmental risk and impact assessment is that the risk mostly are negative, but the impacts sometimes are positive. So you're always looking at the positives and the negatives. The impacts that are direct, the impacts that are indirect, the impacts that are cumulative. So direct impacts come about when maybe you're undertaking vegetation clearance, maybe if there is pollution, maybe to water or soil. And direct impacts, maybe if the business that you're establishing is going to move to cause migration of people into the area. And if the business is going to create jobs, or maybe if the business, the operations are going to cause maybe a change in the local environment, something like soil erosion. Cumulative impacts the state of the environment, or they're adding to the negative impacts that they're amplifying the negative impacts that have been existing. So for example, of exploitation of water from multiple operations. So there are several screening and impact assessment tools that you can use in this process. So we have the environmental and social screening forms. We have the process mapping tool. We have the risk identification worksheet. We have a physical mapping tool, walkthrough guide. We have the risk assessment tool. So this afternoon, we are just going to cover the first four tools. And we start with the environmental and social screening form. So this form is mostly used to identify the impacts of activities or a project. So for example, the first question there is, are there any program activities likely to affect the biodiversity of any target zones? Are there any program activities likely to contribute to any of the climate change factors? So if in the second column your answer is yes, in the third column now you can give a comment to say the program activities like air pollution are going to contribute to climate change. And then also for the third question, will the projects release pollutants or any hazardous, toxic or noxious materials into the atmosphere? So if the answer is yes, now in the third column we can specify which pollutants or hazardous materials that will be produced. So that is on the environment part of the screening form. And the social part is you look at, is the activity likely to breach any local, federal, or international laws or any law that you are considering? If the answer is yes, and then you can now put, will the impact, will the likely result be significant? So you can do a narrative there or a comment. So, and then you can look about at the other aspect about inclusivity of the project or the activity that you're doing. Will there be inclusivity in the distribution of the public goods during proposed activity implementation? So you're trying to explore whether the activity or the project that you want to do will benefit men and women equally. So that is an example of a social screening form. And you can get many examples online. We'll try to get several examples of them and add them to the portal, the updates portal, for which you can learn from and try to adopt into your operations. So the other tool that you can use to identify environmental and social risks of your activities or projects is the process map. This is mostly a flowchart that visually illustrates the flow of your activities of a given process from the beginning to the end. So it helps you to identify environmental risks, occupational health and safety hazards, and areas where you can make improvement. So in order for you to develop a process map, you need first to identify all your company processes. And then secondly, you need to identify all the inputs. What are you using? Are you using water? Are you using energy? Are you using, what raw materials are you using? What chemicals are you using? And then after that, you identify the outputs. So are there any waste that are generated? Are there any emissions that are produced from your activities or products? And then are there any byproducts for each project for each step in the process? So after you complete the process map, you consider each step to identify, are there any occupational health and safety hazards that are going to come from that activity or project? Are there any risks to the environment and communities? And then what are the opportunities that can be found for waste reduction and also ensuring that there is resource efficiency? So, and there's a disclaimer here, is that when you are doing this process mapping, you have to include everybody in the discussions, in the identification of the inputs, of the outputs, and the different activities that you're doing, for them to have, it's kind of also learning, and also it ensures that you cover all aspects of the business operations. So here there's an example of a process map. You can see there's the inputs in the first column. We have the process steps, operation activity. We have the outputs. We have the occupational health and safety hazards that have been identified. And then we have the risk and potential negative impacts on the environment. And then the last column is the opportunity that can be found there. So the example in the first column is maybe the raw materials are water and energy. There's also labor there. So what is the kind of process that is an operational activity? What are the outputs from that process? You get waste emissions and byproducts. So what are the occupational health and safety hazards that are likely? You can get injuries and long-term illness. And then the environmental pollution can also be come from that process, and also shortage of resources. Maybe you're using a lot of resources in the production. And then what is the opportunity? There's an opportunity to improve your process, to reuse and recycle materials. So that is the process map. The other tool is risk identification worksheet. This one helps you identify key risk areas for your company so that you can focus on your efforts on the most important things. So it does not tell you whether an impact is positive or negative, but it calls you to specific risk areas that are mostly to become problems. So same here, you have to involve everybody internally and outside the company who are knowledgeable about this risk. And for each box, you are required to circle the appropriate answer. So for example, there's a sample here for environmental risks. So in the first column, there's the risk factors. My company has the following conditions. And then the last column is whether the impact is potential negative, yes. Response means that there's a potential negative impact. So, for example, our operations require large quantities of fresh water. Is it yes or no? So if you say yes, you know that water resources depletion is going to happen. And now you can put it in if the region has water scarcity, you can put it in the bigger picture. And if also, you also know that there's going to be contamination of groundwater and surface water is likely because from the process, there's the input of water is going also to lead to output of wastewater. So you're able to flag that one. So, and then the other thing is the second row, do our operations require high energy supply, yes or no? If there is if the answer is yes, you know there's going to be high energy consumption. Do we, like for people who are operating mini grids, if they are hybrid, do we need large quantities of fuel for operations? If the answer is yes, then you have to start factoring in air emissions from the processes. So on and on, you're able to identify the risks and you know the different actions that you're supposed to take. So the other tool that you can use is the one that I'm going to highlight also is the physical mapping tool. In this tool, you just draw a map of your company. Like it's like a layout plan. So in each area that activities are happening, for example, you can say maybe if it's a shop and it's customer facing shop, you look at is there enough lighting in the area for customers to see the products that you're selling? Is there a risk of fire? Do you have a fire extinguisher in that place? Do you have like the floor? Is it fitted with the right tiles, or the tiles are prone to slippery and can cause injuries? So for each area of your operations, you're able to identify the different risks and the impacts that can come from that. So whenever you identify that problem, you write. So you know that maybe in the area where you're storing the chemicals or the materials, you need to provide ventilation. You need to provide maybe racks for storing hazardous materials. Maybe in the equipment room, there's the issue about power consumption, ventilation. There's a lot of dust. So all those aspects from the physical map, you're able to identify the different risks that can come from there. this mostly happens for this tool mostly happens for businesses that are maybe in production and generation. So on risk assessment tool, mostly this one is usually the next step after you've identified the initial risk that the business is facing. So here you're just trying to categorize the risks that are there. So you can choose the categories. So you have low risk, you have medium risk, you have high risk. So for example, low risk, there's a low probability for that risk happening. And if the risk happens, then the impact will be very low. For medium risk, there's a high possibility, but the impact will be low. For high risk, there's high probability, and if the risk happens, then the impact is going to be high. So, and when you're looking at the impacts, it's both ways. You can look at the environment and also on the people. So, and there's a table here that can guide you in that process for the ranking and the rating of the different risks that you've identified. So further in undertaking categorization, you can choose to use the standard categorization. For example, you say for a low risk project is a project that has minimal or no adverse social and environmental impacts. For a medium risk is a project with potential limited adverse social and environmental impacts that are few in number. These are specific to a given site. They are reversible and can be addressed through mitigation measures. For high-risk projects that have potential significant adverse social and environmental impacts that cover large areas, they are irreversible and unprecedented. So, for example, if you have to clear a forest for you to establish a mini grid, that is a high-risk project. So the impacts will be diverse, and mostly they are irreversible and unprecedented. So I just thought to put here the Energy Access Relief Fund borrower categorization. This is an example that this is what they've adopted. So they have that category I3 or C, activities that with no minimal and adverse environmental and social risks. We have the medium risk, and then we have the high risk. So at that juncture, I'd like to ask if there are any questions or comments before I hand over to Dennis to lead us into the breakout room session.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone has any questions. As we wait for that, so I have assigned your breakout rooms. The people who are joining right now, so they might not have been assigned yet, but we do have 3 breakout rooms. There is breakout room number 1, which will be mini grids, and that will be facilitated by John. Breakout room number 2 is retailers, and that will be facilitated by Monica. And breakout room number 3 is assemblers, and that will be facilitated by Rebecca. So we will have a total of 12 minutes to discuss. I'm just posting the question right now in the chat. And the question is, which risk identification tool have you used in your business? And as a group, you will be required to select one tool and create a sample risk identification. So the facilitators will guide you through that discussion. And then when we come back, you'll be required to have someone summarize the discussions that you had. So I'm just posting that question in the chat right now, and then I will go ahead and launch the breakout rooms. For anyone who is not assigned, I will go ahead and also do that right now. So before we go, I don't know if anyone has a question. You can hear me. You can once again project the presentation, and then we'll get into the next step. So at this point, I would like a representative from each group to summarize the highlights of the discussions that you had. And I'll start with Monica's group, since Monica is on video. Did you pick a representative who could summarize, or are you with someone?
I am the someone who's going to just give a summary of our discussions in the second group. So it was had distributors and retailers of solar home systems, as well as clean cooking stoves. And some of the tools that they said they have used are like the risk assessment tool. We also talked about using the the process mapping tool. And some of the reasons they gave was it's very easy to understand, it's easy to explain to a larger team, and at the same time it also makes the process of identifying mistakes a lot easier. And then when we were talking about trying to identify what are some of the risks that are associated with this business category, one of the things that stood out was e-waste, right? So they're introducing these products into the market or to customers. And then what does it mean in terms of protecting those consumers or the users of these products, as well as the environment? So there was the issue of e-waste. There was also like for some of the companies also who do like rooftop installations, when you need to install like the solar panel, there's risks of falling. What do you do in that scenario? How can you sort of equip the installer to avoid or to reduce the chances of such a risk? Then there was also other risk that was mentioned. So there's a use of one of the companies also uses remote monitoring systems, and so that brings in the issue of data privacy and what would happen if there would be some sort of a breakdown in that communication system. How do you protect that data of the end customer? But I think generally the discussion was, as even in this case, it was you have distributors and you have retailers. Distributors have no direct access to the end user of the product, but then they do in a way also, I think as John was saying, that they have policies. You as a company, you have things that you ascribe to. So how do you also then translate that to your partners, even though you may not have access to the end user? Yeah. Okay,
thank you for that summary, Monica. Next up, I will give an opportunity to Breakout Room 1. This is for the mini grids. John, I'm not sure, did you make a selection on a representative to summarize the discussion, if you can hear me?
Yes, we did. We did, but I had the opinion that we needed more time. But,
there's never enough time when it comes to breakout rooms.
Okay. So our representative is Mari. I think he'll be presenting on behalf of the mini grids.
All right. If you can hear me, please go ahead, unmute and share.
Yeah. So yeah, we discussed more so the actual tools and methods in more detail. So there's one company had actually had an external risk assessment done, from which developed sort of a large sort of risk register, which identified risks across the different the different areas of the business. So making that difference between operational and financial risks, for instance. And for me, that was a really good point, because when we are assessing the risks and screening, we need to make sure that the right people across the organization are involved at different points. So when we have financial risk, we will have operational and safety risks. So we need to involve different people from across the businesses. Another company spoke about the different analyses that they had done in terms of identifying risks. So the PESEL analysis and SWOT analysis, and also doing that throughout sort of the value chain as well. So across all the different parts of their operations. And then the other aspect was the recording of risks that had actually been realized in the past. And the reports that come out of that, and then making sure that they also feed into risk assessments for future, so that mitigation actions can be put in place.
All right. Thank you very much for that summary, Rebecca. I think your discussion is slightly different from what Monica shared, but raises very interesting points around documentation and incorporating the findings from this screening into the various elements or areas of operation that the companies are dealing in. So thank you very much for that summary. John, I'm not sure if the representative is available at this time. If not, then you can go ahead and summarize. Or is it Murray? Oh, I see Murray is online now.
Yes, it's him.
All right, please go ahead and share, Murray.
Thank you, Dennis. Sorry, my connection wasn't very good, so I was trying just to fix it because I just was hotspotting, and our internet install is not good. However, our team was handling the environment and social screening forms, and via this, we tried to look at any activities that are likely to affect maybe the general the plants within the area where we are going to operate a mini grid. And so doing, we need to some of the activities that can affect the biodiversity could be maybe waste management. So we need to ensure that the wastes from the mini grid products are properly disposed of. And then there's also what are some of the program activities that may contribute to the climate change. For example, during distribution, we may find that maybe customers are located in places where the distribution network may not be able to go through. Then it may call for maybe cutting down some trees to enable the distribution run smoothly. So we find the appropriate means of doing the distribution network. We also try to look at the project itself. What impact does it have to the atmosphere? And mini grids, I may say the mini grids are absolutely clean, and they have, I may say, very less effect to the environment. So
yes, I can hear you now, but the line was breaking. Please proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was just saying that mini grids are absolutely almost clean, and there's very less effect to the atmosphere. During project implementation, maybe we may say we don't expect a lot of noise, because most of mini grids, the major source of power is always the sun, which does not make even noise, doesn't affect anybody or the environment. So we find it very friendly. We need to, when you're doing this the mini-grid project, we need to look at how to handle maybe accidents, most especially during the distribution. We find that the technicians have to maybe climb poles. So we make sure that we put the technicians into safety, or give them all the safety gears to ensure that they do not get accidents or get injured during implementation. And then, of course, we have.
Can you hear me? Thank you for that summary. Something that I also see as a similarity between what you discussed and what Monica mentioned earlier. Once again, e-waste comes up. So the importance of properly managing the waste and also assessing the environment, the impact that the project will have on the environment. So thank you for that, Murray. At this point, I will hand over to John to continue with the presentation. John, if you can hear me, please proceed.
Thank you, Dennis. And I think we've gotten some good feedback from the breakout sessions. So after the process of identifying the impacts and risks, the next step in the environmental and social management system is to put in place measures to, if you identified positive impacts, then you have to put in place measures to enhance them. If the risks are negative, then you have to put in place measures to mitigate and manage them. So my next presentation will be mostly to talk about putting in place management programs for the identified risks and impacts. So in order for you to manage the identified environmental risks and impacts, you need to have something like action plans and procedures to address the risks. And then mostly there's something that we call AMRO. So AMRO is mostly, it's an hierarchy that says that mostly for the risks and impacts, the first action should be always to avoid, you anticipate and prevent the adverse impacts. So if the site maybe for a mini grid is in an area with a forest or a wetland, you try to avoid that choice. So you look for an alternative site where you're not affecting a natural habitat. Or maybe if the design process of something is going to lead into a lot of maybe e-waste, you change the design, use maybe different materials. And maybe the other aspect is about scheduling. Scheduling is the timing. For example, in Kenya now, this season is when we have a lot of whales visiting our coastal area around Lamu. So if you want to do maybe a project there, maybe an energy project, you advise now, this is not the season for you to implement. So you wait for maybe November or December or January when there are no whales around that area. Or maybe if you want to do a fiber optic. So that kind of explains that you can change the implementation schedule. And that also serves as a measure to avoid the different impacts that will have caused when implemented according to whatever timeline that you had in mind. So the second aspect of the hierarchy of mitigation is to minimize. You reduce maybe the duration. If you are producing noise, you reduce the duration. Mostly you find construction activities are limited to daytime. If you want to do construction at night, you have to apply for a special permit. And the intensity, which is the way in terms of the timelines for project timelines, are you going to to spread the work out more so that the impact is less. And then also the significant and the extent of the impact. So you put in place to reduce that. Maybe the workers, you give them for hearing, you give them ear muffs. Maybe for safety, others hands, you give them gloves. And then others also maybe on the side to rotate the workers. If there's a lot of noise, there is a measure to minimize. Sometimes the impacts happen and there's nothing you can do about it. So you are requested to restore to the original surroundings. This is mostly done when maybe the projects have reached the end of their life. Mostly you are required to restore it to the original condition that it was. And then if an impact cannot be prevented, it cannot be, a restoration cannot be done, then you do the offset. Mostly you get companies that are generating maybe energy from coal and other non-clean fuel sources. You get them maybe buying carbon credits. Those are mostly used to offset the impacts that they've created. So the three methods that are mostly recommended for you to understand and design impact mitigation and management. So we have the root cause analysis. We have the action plan chart where you create environmental and social management plans. And then also have the outline of procedure where you create procedures for the different impacts or the policies that are in place. So this just explains the implementation mitigation hierarchy. So where you start in the project cycle, you start avoiding, minimize, restore, and the last action mostly is when everything has failed, you offset. So in terms of the root cause analysis, now is this you've identified the impacts that are likely to emanate from your operations, or maybe an impact has happened to operations. So you want to understand really what are the root causes of the deficiencies, and maybe in the management system. Why do you have the inadequate procedures or improper? What is really causing the impact? So is it inadequate procedures? Is it improper training? So you have the root cause tree diagram to brainstorm. You map the underlying factors that can lead to negative impacts for each prioritized risk. So you can see on that tree, the problem is mostly whatever that is on the surface or up, maybe the lips. We have the sky as the external factors. So when below that, you look at the different elements of the management system. We have the policy, the monitoring and review management programs. We have the emergency preparedness and response. So when you are doing the root cause analysis, there's mostly use the 5 whys techniques to facilitate the discussions about the prioritized risks. So for example, if there is a chemical spill in your facility, that is the problem that is there. So the first why would be the container holding the chemical leaked. That is the first why. The second one would be maybe there's a hole in the container. And then the third one is you ask why there was a hole in the container. You find that the container was holed and has not been replaced. And then when you go further, you find that the workers did not know that it was supposed to be replaced. And then the last why you find that the worker was not trained in chemical handling procedures. So they were not able to identify the root cause. So you find that when you reach that level, you're able to pinpoint that the problem can be sorted with building the organizational capacity and competence. So if you train the workers in the chemical handling processes, then you'll not experience the risk of a chemical spill. That's how you apply the 5 Whys. So when it comes to the action plan, this one just identify the actions that are supposed to be taken to identify, to address the risks that have been identified. You determine how to manage the actions. For example, mostly you're required to develop an environmental and social management plan for each sub-project that you are doing or for each activity after the screening process. So an example is there. Maybe a worker has been exposed to high concentrations of dust. So you look at what do you want to achieve broadly? What are the performance targets? So for example, you want to reduce the worker's exposure to dust. So what do? Maybe you decide to provide personal protective equipment to the workers. Maybe you want to sprinkle water in the work areas to reduce the dust. So that is just an example of how you apply an action plan chart. When it comes to outline of procedure, I think this is the mostly used tool in management. Maybe when you're creating a manual for maybe human resource management. So the outline of procedure clearly provides an orderly way of taking actions so that they become routines, so and daily processes and practices. So you can choose to communicate this as maybe text, maybe as a flowchart, maybe as a pictogram, and you use. So on the right, you can find an outline of procedure. That maybe you choose the title. You have to have a unique identification number for that procedure. And then what is the number of pages for the procedure? So the purpose, what is the objective of that procedure? For example, the procedure is intended to address risk X identified during the risk assessment process. And then the scope, what is the reach of this procedure for the company? What and who is included in the procedure and who is not? For example, the procedure covers the company operations and business processes. So it covers internal and stakeholders and also the external stakeholders. And then now you can make definitions how the company understands the different terms that are used in the procedures. Then you define the responsibility, and then what are the instructions, and then you provide reference documents for the different instructions that have been provided so that somebody can get detailed information on the same. And then the records, where are the outcomes of the procedures documented? For example, worker injuries may be recorded in an accidents log, or worker issues may be recorded in personnel files. So, for example, in Kenya, you're supposed to register your office as a workplace, and also you have to have an accident register, which is usually inspected by people from the Department of Labor. So you have to have an accident register that is covering all the incidents that happen at your operations. And then for the procedure also, you need to have an approving authority who's responsible for approving the procedures. For example, maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's the general manager. And then when was the procedure issued? And then if there are any revisions that have been done to the procedure, that should be indicated. So on the next and the final element of the ESMS that we're going to discuss, the organizational capacity and competency, as we had indicated initially, is that we can only say that you have an environmental and social management system when you have policies and procedures in place, and also you have a team of dedicated people who are following the policies and procedures. So, and for a good SMS to be said to be so, then you need to have the approval of the senior management in the company. You have to have a balanced team that is dedicated, multifunctional. So if you have different departments in your business, you have to make sure that you get at least a person from the different departments to form the ESMS team. If there are any training needs that have to be done, you find that will be done by the human resources. But if they are not part of the ESMS team, then they are not able to know what training needs are there. If there's anything on production, maybe on the efficient use of resources and reduction of waste, if you have people from operations or production, they'll be able to handle that. If there's anything that covers suppliers and contractors, the procurement department will be able to make sure that it's done. If you have anything on maintenance, then the people in operations and production will be able to do that. So, and for the environmental and social management system team, you have to have a leader, and the characteristics of that leader is supposed to be a very good communicator, somebody who's very good at problem solving, somebody who can manage a project, somebody who's proactive or pragmatic, who can preempt things, and somebody who respects all members of the team. So, and when you're building the capacity of the ESMS team, you have to do communication and training. So they need to be aware of the ESMS. This goes beyond just the team, but all the stakeholders that have been identified and prioritized. So they need to be aware of the ESMS. What is the ESMS? What are its goals? What do they need to do? And then also they need to understand that the ESMS is necessary and will improve the company. How does this help the company? How does it help their department if they're the employees? What will change? What is the need for them? They need to understand all these aspects. And then also they need to obtain the skills and knowledge to be effective in their roles. So they need to understand what are the policies and procedures. So you have to do that awareness creation. They have to read and understand the policies and creation procedures. And then they need to know exactly what they need to do in terms of contributing to the implementation, and how to do that, make their contribution, and what will happen if they don't do it. So I think we'll end there with whatever actions that you're supposed to take on making sure that.
So I don't know if any of the attendees have a question for John or a reaction to the presentation or the events so far. If you do, I'll just give a few seconds for anyone who wants to say something to unmute, or if you have a question. So I see Cedric has posted a question in the chat. So yes, we will share these materials with you. We will post a recording of this workshop on the Energy Access Relief Fund Help Desk, and that will be accompanied by the presentation that has been made, a longer version of it. We had to shorten it for the sake of time, but the presentation that we'll upload on the website will have more detail on it. Also, as part of the email that we'll send you, we will provide a list of our calendar of workshops for the rest of the year. So you'll be able to register for them in advance Yeah. Okay. So is there any question? If not, sorry, John, go ahead.
And then also I'd like to say that we've done an analysis of the different legal frameworks that are required in the different countries that the participants come from. I think that information will be provided also on the portal. And as it serves as the first step in terms of creating an environmental management system. If you are able to start complying with the legal requirements in your country, then you are on your way to implementing an environmental and social management system for your business.
Okay, thank you, John. So at this point, if there aren't any questions, I'll give Monica an opportunity to give closing remarks. But before that, I would also like to state that for these workshops, we generate certificates of participation and attendance for all the attendees who join the workshop. So please, if you have not done so, send your name as you'd like it to appear on the certificate. Also state your affiliation or organization where possible. And then send that to dmigono@clasp.ngo. So I've posted the email address in the chat for your reference. Yeah, but at this point, Monica, please, welcome to give your closing remarks.
Sure. Thanks, Dennis, and thanks, John. And thanks, everyone, also for participating and engaging throughout the workshop. It is our hope that it was useful introduction to what an ESMS is and what are the key elements to think about when you want to create one for your organization. So as John mentioned, we have put together a summary of the regulations that exist in some of the countries that you're working in, and this will be available on the portal. I think the link to this portal has been pasted in the chat. So feel free to visit that portal and also just to look at other resources that are on there, as well as the recording of other webinars. At the same time, I also want to welcome you to pencil in the upcoming webinars into your calendars. We'll be having the next one possibly at the end of this month, and we'll be talking more. We'll be following it from the webinar we had last month on e-waste. So we invite you to attend. And at the same time, as mentioned, also we have a dedicated email address. So in case you would like support on any of the focus areas that the help desk is providing technical assistance on, please feel free to reach out to us on that email address, and we can have a discussion on how to better build your capacity on those topics. But then again, thank you so much, and I wish you a lovely rest of your day. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Monica. So I was just responding to feedback from Chiara. I hope that is the correct pronunciation for that. There's a suggestion to, let me say, change the format of the workshops to have more breakout rooms. And this is something that we previously discussed as the team that organizes this workshop. So that feedback is appreciated, and we'll consider that feedback for future workshops. Yeah, so at this point, I would like to bring the workshop to a close. We are very grateful to all the participants for making time to attend the workshop. We value your participation, feedback, the questions that you've asked, and again, for making time for this. So until next time, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.